It's completely possible. And also there are things that are happening right now that are indicating that that's not the case anymore. Like if that were the case, this would not have happened.
Copy the spreadsheet for me. Save the day.
Why did you do that?
Oh, is this really that big of a deal? I don't have time to fix all this. And it's like, you do. And like, you will.
The AI is just like, good job. You guys are doing good. We'll take it from here. All right, there we go. Yeah. So this is episode 7 of the DevSync after a little bit of a hiatus, a little over a month and a half or so. But that's all right. We're back to it. I am in a new background, so that was part of the delay. Switched apartments, so some work going on in the background with that. But we're back to it again. Unfortunately, without Will this time. Will is, I think he said he's doing some final testing for a big release, so he's got some more important things to do tonight. But he'll catch us on the next one. But Eric and I will hold down the fort this time. So
yeah,
all right. We had a couple ideas for topics, but I guess I don't know. I guess did you have anything top of mind yet, or not? Not really at this point. So
no, man. Let's just stick with what we had and see where it goes.
Awesome. So I think one of the topics we had talked about was delegation. I think we've touched on it before, and I think one of the previous episodes, and just was thinking that is definitely a topic that will become. I don't know. There's a lot to it. So
there is a lot to
it. So I know that was definitely one that you were inspired to talk about more. So maybe I can throw it to you first and we'll dance around that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's become more interesting lately because my younger self just thought of delegation as like, I'm a manager and I have people that report to me, therefore I get to tell them to do stuff.
That's right.
I guess technically you could still do that too. That's what a manager does. However, leaders delegate responsibly, and there's so much that goes into it. The one that really got me was, picking the right task for the right person. Just because you have a list of stuff doesn't mean you just hand it all to, the same person. That one's been very interesting. We've done some training exercises around that, and it's been very curious to kind of see how different scenarios play out.
Okay. As far as just the results, as far as like different people taking different kinds of work and seeing who does what. Okay.
Yeah. Like, or, not necessarily taking, but it's, you've got this like high priority, high complexity task. Do you automatically give that to like your number one, right? Or do you start looking for some of the, non-tangibles where it's, you've got a person who's really striving to get that next promotion, or really looking for a challenge, or isn't challenged currently, right? Like looking for that kind of stuff, and being able to kind of send those things off, or even breaking up tasks where you have somebody who's looking to, at a certain point, right? You get to the, even on the individual contributor side, you get to that point where you are leading, right? So like a lead engineer, senior engineer, whatever it might be. And one of those soft skills is, exactly what it's at, leadership, right? Mm-hmm. So being able to delegate a task that then that person can sort of sub-delegate, that kind of thing. So, instead of hands on keyboard, it's more of leading the task and all of that. So just all identifying all of those different scenarios, and like just being able to look for it instead of just being focused on, I was told to do a thing, it's due by this day, therefore, it has to be done this one specific, way or whatever. So,
right. Yeah. That's, I think it's something we've talked about a little bit before too, where really, I guess my mind goes to the single point of failure kind of situation where, especially with the deadlines where it's, okay, we need to get this thing done. And typically when so you're already in a crunch, then it just automatically goes to, okay, well, we fall back on the, whoever, the person that normally gets a lot of things done because they get it done fast. So you just end up giving it back to them just because it's easy. But then, that pattern starts to repeat itself. And then you've created a single point of failure because you have the one star developer, whoever, that always is getting things done. And then nobody else is getting anything else done. they're always getting, the little things or the stuff that's not as important. So then that always becomes a challenge, I think, where we're trying to break that pattern where, you have to, I guess either recognize that it's happening and then try to, I guess, that's where if you can get somehow stop the last minute deadlines, like, or at least factor in the time that, hey, we're going to take a little bit extra time to let somebody else do it. They're not going to be as fast, but it's going to give them the chance to become faster because they never get the experience. They never get better at it, as opposed
Yeah.
to just letting the same people do the same work all the time. So
Easy enough, right? And
right,
I mean, I should say it sounds easy enough.
in
Um,
theory, yeah,
but the stress of deadlines and all of that comes downhill, of course. Um,
for sure.
yeah, it's funny. There's like there was this technique where it was like just equal praise for tasks. Because
Okay,
in certain cases, I mean, think about like as a manager, right? You're always looking for like what is motivating your staff, right?
sure,
You got people who are just motivated solely by just paycheck. Nothing wrong with that. You got people who are motivated by the challenge, motivated by the prestige or the job title or the I don't know, just the pride in work or whatever it might be, right?
right,
Um, but in a lot of cases, it seems like if you can just praise the same, if you give the same amount of praise for tasks, no matter who did it, right? Like recognize even the little things that people are doing. There's less of a um, there's less of like a focus on I got to get the big task. I got to have the big one, right? Or I got to
gotcha.
have I got to be on that one project. Because at the end of the day, I mean, if you're being recognized for your work to the appropriate level of leadership, for a lot of people that would suffice,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, for sure. Right. Yeah, exactly. No, I think, yeah, there's plenty of people that just, that positive reinforcement that, hey, you did a good job on that thing, whatever it was,
Yeah,
for sure. Right. And yeah, that was something also that was always kind of tricky. I mean, you're definitely right as far as the manager should definitely be the one that's really at least keeping an eye out for that and communicating that as much as possible. Because I don't know, we've been in situations before where the visibility, I guess, right, is probably what you're talking about a little bit, where the project visibility starts to become, a little bit of the factor where,
yeah,
which I guess, yeah, leads back to what we were just talking about as far as like same star developer always works on the bigger projects because they are the ones that get things done faster. And now there's more people that see that. And then it just creates this, this feedback loop.
yeah. And I mean, it creates an unnecessary amount of stress. I mean, um, recognizing the folks who are either ready for the next level or even just interested in that next level, right,
Mm.
should help kind of dictate what tasks they're given or how to break up tasks or which projects they're part of, so that they do get that recognition, right? Like even just getting an at mention in a Slack post, I'll be honest, feels pretty good.
It's not bad,
Yeah,
especially, when you're in a bigger channel, there's few hundred people in it. It is kind of cool to, that at tag that specifically, hey, they did that. No, I did that, whatever. So
yeah, but even just taking the time and like giving praise on like, hey, that one task that kind of came in last minute or you forgot about, and you had to, somebody did it real quick, right?
mhm.
Knocked it out. Just throwing a quick kudos into the chat for everybody, even if it's just for the team, right? Just saying like, hey, thanks for taking care of this. But maybe even going overboard with it and throwing it in the big channel for the leadership team to look at. It's like, hey, this person copied a spreadsheet for me, saved the day, right? Sounds small, but
But hey,
they don't know, right?
yeah,
Like they're
exactly.
thinking like, whoa, that must be the most important spreadsheet of all time. Might be. I don't know.
It's totally possible. There have been,
Could
yeah,
be. Yeah.
definitely dealt with some pretty important spreadsheets in the past. So
Yeah.
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 No, for sure though. That's a good point. Well, and just to have that habit and, write that recognition, and then you can use that a little bit to, I don't know, I guess, coach or channel the things that you want to be positive, as far as, hey, they proactively fix that issue, and if that's something that's really been a problem, which I think, yeah, basically everybody probably could benefit from. It's like, yeah, let's encourage that. Look for proactive issues, take care of it without asking, just get it fixed. You have that power, recognize that they have that power, and encourage it when you see it. So there's also that
Ah,
too.
oh, just such a good call. But I mean, honestly, when you look at kind of the downward delegation, take away delegation for a second, that mindset right there about something as simple as proactively fixing a problem. I mean, that's just a lead by example type thing, right? If if you're like a principal or lead or senior or whatever, and you're in the code base and you're proactively fixing things and you're communicating that in say like stand up or DevSync or whatever, and you're telling people like, hey, I was in here and I noticed this thing and here's how I fixed it and all of that. You're just setting an example so
Mhm.
that the next time, maybe somebody's helping the new person and they can communicate that as something people do. So it's
Mhm.
almost like a soft delegation, right? Like, or almost I don't know, an empowerment or understanding what level of authority people have when they're doing these things. Because, you definitely get the engineers who are like, whatever's written in the story is what I'm doing, period. Right.
Right. Yeah.
I did find this thing
Outside
that's
from.
broken, but it's not part of my story, so I'm not touching it. And instead, it's just like, no, no, no. See something, say something.
Mhm.
Even if it's just telling somebody, hey, I found this thing, it's broken, it's awful, whatever it might be.
Right.
um, that's all just lead by example stuff. And that to me is just, if you're delegating tasks, if you guys are communicating through it, those are the kind of behaviors that get set, and that just has awesome trickle down, um, as opposed to just the stuff coming in last second, deadlines, and the insurmountable stress that comes with that,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? So,
I
yeah,
can't. So I guess I was. So it made me think of something I can't remember. I don't know, one of the thousands of other podcasts I've consumed, but someone was talking about essentially, you were talking about having maybe a lead or whoever, some sort of higher level engineer, and trying to set an example. And I think they were talking about having them record a lot of what they code, especially if they're fixing something like that. Would be a good example where they just do a quick recording of what they've done to kind of explain whether working. And I think even and they were talking about even potentially, taking it to the extreme of almost like live streaming essentially their work so that others can go see like how does this, lead engineer, principal engineer, whatever work. And you can, get a feel for how they look at a problem, what they go and, go, okay, like saw this, I'm going to go here, I'm going to check that out and just kind of narrate to themselves. But then it gives junior devs a chance to like watch and see like, okay, no, that's a good idea, and just kind of again promote that the way that you would want things to operate, especially for somebody that's not as experienced, where they are going to spend hours and hours just like digging through code and be like, I have no idea what to do. Then at least have a video reference to potentially at least show them like, hey, this is a good place to start or whatever. So something like that. So like kind of like you were saying, I guess it's almost like indirect delegation in a way.
yeah. I'll tell you what, man. We'll have to have our pal Jim on here sometime. He's actually he was telling me about an old team that he worked with that did that, but that was like a formal part of their development process where they would
Wow.
essentially have it's like pair programming, but
Yeah.
not that like classic sense of pair
Or
programming.
like
It was
async.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool. I know he was big on trying to get that going. We'll have him talk about that. Because it seemed really cool. If you can get people to buy into that. But like
Yeah.
I think you bring up a good point about imagine you're just coming out of college, like this is your first job
Mhm.
and you get a story for the first time. Like what's gonna be better for your growth? Is it gonna be to get a story that some jaded lead or principal goes to the pull request and just like brutalizes the code review, right? I
Right.
mean, it just, what is this? What is this? What is this?
Yeah.
Basically talking about standards that you've never even heard of and
Hmm.
referencing, best practices that are so nuanced, it's insane.
Yeah.
Or just have an opportunity to let that person kind of look over your shoulder and see how things are done and get adapted to the tools. And like to me, I like thinking about I wish I could have had that would have been awesome.
Oh, for
um,
sure. Yeah.
but
Well, and I
I
mean,
think more often than
even
not it's the former.
oh, but yeah, yeah, for sure. It definitely, I definitely worked at a few places that seemed to be more of the a little more brutal as far, or at least direct as far as why did you do that? Um, but no, I mean, I don't know. I really enjoyed. the pair programming idea. I mean, I always enjoyed sitting down with somebody that knew a lot more than me, and just having them, either walk it through with me or like watching them go through it. But that was always super, I don't know, super valuable to me. So,
Same.
um, yeah, especially in the beginning for sure. But and it's fun to be on the other side too, when you can actually explain some stuff to other people. So that's not so bad.
Yeah. As long as they know the keyboard shortcuts. That's the
That
worst
is
part. Is like,
priority
I
for
need you to
sure.
type faster and I need you to use keyboard shortcuts because this is taking forever.
Oh, man, yeah.
Other than that, yeah. Other than that.
That right. That is, yeah. That was one I picked up pretty quickly when I first started. But it was Java, so I had to learn all my Eclipse shortcuts, and then that's kind of been the root of all my shortcuts for a while. So a lot of them have kind of stayed there. But now I'm just in this weird hybrid where I use some things from VS Code, and I still use some old Eclipse shortcuts and stuff. I guess it depends on what language I'm doing and that kind of thing. But yeah, got to know the shortcuts though.
I still try to bring Visual Studio shortcuts into whatever IDE it
Okay,
happen
nice,
to be
old
using
school.
because I mean when .NET is your entire life for the better part of a decade, you
Nice,
get
yeah.
used to it. You
Oh,
know,
for sure.
you get
Yeah,
used
for
to it.
sure.
Um,
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Will was trying to push the Vim, so every once in a while, it's always fun to jump in there a little bit, but I can't quite commit to that full thing. But yeah, Vim shortcuts are also kind of fun.
yeah, I mean I get it. It just maybe I don't get it. I honestly I don't know. Uh, it
Yeah.
seems. I mean, look if it works for you, you don't get all that overhead of the full on like Electron apps and all the baggage that comes with extensions and
Right.
all
Yeah.
of that, right? Like,
Being able to take your IDE with you. Well, I guess at that point it's just I don't know, a DE, just your development environment with you, where
yeah,
it's always there. So yeah.
yeah, couple of soft abstractions on top of underlying CLI tools and um, but it's got all the I mean it's got all the good stuff. It's not like it's the old school VI that we used in college where
Right.
uh, you know and that was one where I was so new to programming in college I didn't even realize there were keyboard shortcuts that you could
Oh, for
use. So it
sure.
was like, oh, you want to go to the end of the line? Yeah, you could use $, or you could just hold down the right key for 20 seconds.
Right. Exactly.
Well,
You'll get there eventually,
I didn't know.
for sure.
But that's where like the pair programming thing. I mean, that concept really just comes in handy. I mean, you can learn a ton just by watching people do little things like that,
Hmm.
right? And those things
Yep.
stick because of primacy, right? Like you're
Yeah.
seeing this thing. This is your first exposure to it, um, and then you build a rapport. You build, trust, and then back to the uh, you know, being giving a brutal code review, like what a brutal, like just terrible way to get introduced, and like now that is the start of your relationship with,
Yeah.
maybe the lead on your team, and that's not great. And then you're sitting there thinking, this guy thinks I'm dumb already,
Right.
right?
Well, yeah. Now it's every PR is a hugely stressful event because
Yeah,
you don't want to submit it and get a bunch of feedback. So now you've slowed that down even more than it's already. You have to do the work, and then you have to go through the emotional damage part too.
yeah. And it's like what we've talked about with the teams over the years, right? Like when we say, pull requests or code reviews are not personal, or they
Right.
shouldn't be,
Right.
right? It's code. There's a set of best practices that we've all defined. Well, maybe not we've all defined, but we've all at least agreed on.
Yeah. Should be close to. Yep.
Yeah, and so like this is what's expected, and
Mhm.
so it's up to everybody individually to make sure that um, the thing you're reviewing holds up to those standards, and if it doesn't, then that's on you.
Sure.
And so like that level of trust is delegated by the fact that we don't have a lot of principals and leads.
Mhm.
And so, to me, that is a form of the delegation where it's like you're giving everyone the authority to review the code against a set of best practices,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and we try to put automation in place and things like that to help. But end of the day, like if you see a misspelling in a comment, I mean, do you fail the pull request for it? I would, honestly. I
Yeah.
mean, I, I want to be able to read the thing.
Right.
Um, or a misspelled variable name, obviously, would be, oh, that's the worst one.
I was going to say,
Um,
yeah. That's there. I know there were a few times where you'd see either a misspelled variable or a misspelled class, and then have to sit there and decide: is it
it is
really
worth
should
it. It is
really should go back
100%
and
worth
fix
it.
this, especially when you're and it's like I didn't. I've never looked at this class before, but it is clearly spelled wrong. So
Or a
worth
table,
worth the refactor. Oh man, or a table. Oh
like in
yeah,
a SQL script, and it's just
yeah,
like the table's misspelled, and you're like, I can't let this go through because then it's just like you're essentially letting a misspelling become canon in your dev pipeline. It's like, no, you can't. And it seems so ticky tack, right? And you always get the pushback from people. Oh, is this really that big of a deal? I don't have time to fix all this. And it's like, you do, and like you
true.
will type thing.
Right,
But some people I think don't push back on stuff like that because they think it's like some kind of personal thing, or you're being mean about it. And it's like, no one's going to remember that 10 minutes
right,
afterwards, right?
right. Well,
Um,
especially on the flip side, though, I feel like I've been there where you don't know that it's misspelled. So when you go to look for something, you're looking for a class name and it's not spelled correctly, so you can't
yeah,
find it. You
yeah,
have to then you waste 20 minutes looking for it, and like, oh, okay, it's because they flipped the C and the L, and now now you've wasted that time trying to learn that, and now that's something that everybody else has to learn as well. And it's just so such a waste of time when you could just
yep,
spend that 10 minutes to fix it and refactor. So
yeah. And honestly, like even like refactoring and stuff, another good delegated task that happens whenever we ever happen to get the time to do those types of things, right? Like how many times do we really get to ever go back and truly refactor and clean up?
yeah,
Um, but one thing I think is cool about that is I've noticed that people definitely take that a bit more seriously. It's almost seems like you're handed like this fact finding mission.
as far as refactoring.
Yeah,
Mhm.
especially folks who maybe aren't familiar with what they're necessarily like the entirety of the thing that they're tasked with digging into. Like that analysis gets done better by people who just are handed that task with like full authority,
Sure.
right?
Okay. Mhm.
Um, and you get the right person in that one, and you can get a lot of good results, right? When they go to do the readout, and they're sitting there and they're talking to people who've been maybe working on this app for I don't know 5 years.
Yeah.
These are the people that know everything about this, and this person who doesn't have as much experience is literally just telling them how it actually is. Uh,
Got it.
you know, I don't know. It
Yep.
just those are the kind of things that like if you just kind of do it right and you take the time to put the right person in that spot, um, it just sort of plays itself out, right?
For sure. Yeah. I was gonna say it. I'm hearing. Oh, what's the term? Beginner's mind, which I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, which is I don't know. Hear that a lot, so it's a little cliche. But I mean, there are in some cases like that where you've been looking at the same code base for 5 years. You have somebody else that comes in and looks at it brand new. Very quickly, they're going to be able to tell you, well, this is what the code does, as opposed to somebody who's just gone blind to it, where it's just been, well, I know what it should do, and stopped reading it because they know what it should do, and it might not do that anymore. So yeah,
yeah,
that's a very good example.
yeah. A little bit like you talk to somebody like my favorite's talking to somebody like a seasoned architect or somebody who's been working on the same app for literally let's just say 5 years.
Right.
It's all they know. They know exactly how it's built from the ground up because they were there from the jump. And you're having this conversation and they're explaining it and you're telling them, but that's not how it works. And they're saying, well, this is how it works. And then you get to keep going. Yeah, but right, like
Right.
things may
Whereas
have changed in 5 years.
it's completely possible, and also there are things that are happening right now that are indicating that that's not the case anymore. Like if that were the
Yeah,
case, this would not have happened.
yeah.
So
You're saying it's fine, but there's this log message that says error. So
right,
either you're wrong or no. But
right, right.
yeah, no, the beginner's mind. Like I mean, any of those cliches, man. Like at the end of the day,
Yeah, I
there's
mean
partial truth to it, right? Like
they're
there's always
cliches
truth
for a
in
reason.
cliches. Yeah,
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 yeah, for
it's
sure.
real.
Yeah. Um, oh, man, that reminded me of something else, but I forget what I was going to go with that. But oh, I guess actually I was going to say I guess back to the refactoring. That was definitely something that I don't know. I always kind of enjoyed going into something blind. Is I feel like was a little tougher for me, where you have to go in and just read the code right out. But I don't know. I always found the sweet spot of being in a project for a little bit, and then you start to slowly discover it, and then you start to spot places where it's like, oh man, I want to refactor that. So that was always something I enjoyed, or like finding those different areas. Usually after a couple months, 3 6 months, you're like, okay, I've been in this for a little bit. Like, we need to refactor that class. I need to refactor those methods. Like, you just kind of start to spot the pain points. Like, I'm gonna put that, throw some stories in the backlog. We'll get back to this. We're gonna fix this.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you you get handed something like an integration, right? That has like a canvas that goes task to task or step to step or whatever.
Okay.
And then you start mapping this thing out. And then your mapping diagram in Lucid Chart is 4 times as big as the app itself.
Right.
And you're like, holy smokes, how did we get to this point?
Definitely.
Um, and you can just see like you can almost kind of put lines in there where you're like, okay, well that was clearly V1, and here's where they figured out where they went wrong in V1, but they didn't just refactor, they just tacked on V2,
Yep. Yep.
right?
Yep.
But then here was like 2B, and it kind of went back a little bit, and um, being able to tell that story, and then those readouts are probably the most fun because you can tell who in the room worked on the different phases because you can just see them
Right.
kind of slouching their
See the
chair.
like, man, that's
I
the
didn't do that. You're like, I didn't know. Um,
exactly. Like we
yeah,
didn't have time. Yeah.
yeah. But then, I mean, what's cool about that too is then, in a lot of cases, the people who are motivated by the pride of their work are usually the first ones to step up and be like, "I've always wanted to fix that," right?
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Like when I came back from R&D, and it was like the reason I came back into technology was the project they were working on was literally a project I wanted to do.
Nice.
It was pretty simple, right? It was like, we're
Yeah.
going to rebuild this entire app. And it was like, I have an idea on how to do that.
Nice. Yeah.
Let's do that. So, yeah, it was, yeah, man, that's such a good, um, yeah, I think the big one, honestly, is just if you give people enough room to work, it works. You know,
Usually, right. Yeah. Just
the
give them.
delegates, the micromanager delegate combination, you know,
Yeah. It's a bad combo. Yeah.
I need you to do this, but give me at least 4 or 5 updates a day, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Here's your thing. Get it done. Let me know if you get stuck.
Yep. Same thing with interns. Like here's
Yeah.
a project, and
Mhm.
it's like figure it out. If you got
Right.
questions, you can come ask. But
Right.
world's your oyster.
Exactly. Have at it.
Yeah.
Not to, I guess, bring in other podcasts again, but I think the Huberman, Andrew Huberman, or Huberman Lab, I guess, is the podcast, was talking about like the actual learning process.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, according to studies, I guess that the actual learning process happens at about 7 minutes in. So you have to get about 7 minutes stuck on the problem, and your brain will actually, whatever, become more plastic and be like, okay, we have to figure out how to fix this. And then it like accepts that it's time to learn kind of thing. So
Hmm.
so a lot of times if you don't sit in that being stuck, then you just don't learn. Because you're just like, this sucks, I don't want to do this, and then you just go do something else. But if you can stay with it, then that's when it gives your chance of your brain a chance to like, okay, like we're gonna figure out a way to get this, and then you actually get a chance to rewire a little bit to like figure out the new problem and actually remember it.
Nice. Yeah, I just pulled that up. I'll bookmark this. I need to watch that. I wonder if there's anything I can grab from there that for teaching flying. I wonder if there's something that can
Oh
be
yeah,
used to help that because that's obviously a lot less about you're not sitting in an office chair. You're sitting in
yeah,
an an
in the
airplane.
sky.
Yeah. So it's not like you can sit there and go, all right, I got to think about this for
Yeah,
7 minutes.
7 minutes. Hopefully, I don't crash in 7 minutes.
Yeah, 7 minutes is it's like $30.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
More,
Gas is not cheap.
no, but um, I will say like I've noticed there's a lot of similarities in teaching. Like there's just I think a generality in teaching skills. Period.
Yep.
So I'm gonna have to watch this. We'll have to come back to this one for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can send you. Or yeah, if you got the right one. But
I think it's how to learn skills faster, maybe.
that might be.
Yeah,
Yeah, it might be.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, take a look.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's a good listen.
Yeah.
Um, well, and I was going to say there was also a topic that we'll have to come back to the topic of complexity, just
Mm.
because that was I don't know that's a fun one, especially just kind of like what you were talking about with when you start to watch things map out, where it's it starts off with this simple thing, and then like suddenly we have this giant map that's 4 times what we thought it would be. Just how much that happens with everything. Everything sounds easy, and
Everything.
then you get started, and then this is a little more complicated than I thought, and then it happens all the time. So
Every single time.
that'd be a fun one to come back to too. But um,
That's what we were playing around with that concept for just kind of like a mini hackathon, where it was like, what if you could feed this complex system into like an AI model in a way that you're basically associating all these disparate pieces of an architecture or just systems as they all come together,
Mhm.
and then could you essentially ask it how to best refactor, or could you ask
Mm.
it how to best extend a piece of that platform, right? Like
Okay.
you put your entire app in there, right? It might be this hugely distributed public cloud infrastructure,
Sure.
right? Just geo distributed, CDNs all over the place, just insane. And then could you basically say like, I want to be able to add, um, you know, a HIPAA compliant healthcare system into our architecture or something like that,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
it understand the intricacies of like how it would even plug in a subsystem, and then also comply with like a complicated you know compliance requirement like HIPAA.
Yeah.
Um, and what we ended up finding out was yes and no.
Okay. Yeah.
uh, it did a pretty decent job about kind of highlighting the obvious stuff,
Sure.
but where it started to break down were things like, did it understand the trust boundaries between
Okay.
different layers of the network, and
Yeah.
data segmentation and
Okay.
things like that. It would give you high level things like, rotate your rotate your SSL keys and or SSH keys and things
Okay.
like that for just kind of basic
Best practice kind of stuff.
admin
Yeah.
operational maintenance. But and so it was kind of fun to watch this model that we were training to do it was having basically the same struggle that you would have if you were basically breaking this whole thing apart.
Slowly learning more and more about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's one of those like made you feel a lot better, but at the same time, like I was really hoping that was going to work.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I hope it's like, that'd be so much easier.
Yeah.
Um, well, it's I'll have to send you an article I just read. I think either like a week or two ago,
Hmm.
but it was LinkedIn. Uh, some engineers from LinkedIn were talking about their like AI pipeline and how they actually use a couple different models, and they ended up training one of the models to give it answers back in YAML based on what the question was. So you'd have one AI that would get the question, and then it would go ask another model, like, okay, here's the question: what systems do we need to talk to get the best answers? And it would come back with a YAML of like, you need to access, like, here's the data, you want to access these models or call these endpoints or whatever. So they kind of like trained it to be the answer of what other systems, just like a middleware basically, um, which is kind of crazy. But it's like that now that makes sense. But then they had to then create their own corrective system for the YAML that it generated. Whereas like 90% of the time the YAML was good, but there would be like 10% that it would miss. And they said like, each 1% was super painful to get it to the point of like they could catch the obvious stuff that it always got wrong, but there would always be like one little thing that it didn't get quite right. So like they had to create their own syntax to like fix the or error correction to fix its suggestions. But it's like so I feel like that's always the case. It's so close. It's like 90%, like it's pretty good, but there's always like you just don't know. Like there's always that one little piece that probably missed this. So yeah, can't fully trust it.
No, it's like the image and video generation. It's like it's almost close, and then all of a sudden there's six fingers on the hand, and you're like, we almost made it, right?
Yep, we were right there. Her
We
legs
were
started
right.
crossing the other direction, and
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
close.
No, that's cool. I mean, and honestly, like that's, I think like I said, we were just doing it as like a little hack just to see if we could get some kind of result out of it. And I'm not saying that it definitely was not a complete failure.
Oh no, sure.
It definitely gave us some insight, but I think with enough time, and obviously this is where it's all going, you keep a system like I don't know, like a Lean IX type thing where people are putting in their catalog of their infrastructure,
Okay.
right? And that underlying architectural relationship between the high level and the subsystems. I mean, you'd think like we're headed to a point where you'd be able to prompt things like fairly large architectural decisions, right? You should be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that'd be interesting. I'd be very curious if Gartner is doing anything in that space, right? Given the way that they interact with like architecture professionals,
Okay.
given like that level of guidance, right? Like somebody
Okay.
like a senior architect might go to Gartner and say, "We're looking at adding, voice over IP to our call center or something."
Sure.
What's the best thing to, install? And then they're going to look at what is the corpus of all your tooling to
Okay.
figure out what's the best thing.
Yeah.
Tools like that, right? But then even making them more resident and local to your business, um, and then just keep going more granular. Eventually, I think you're going to have organization leaders that are like, how do we apply this to our specific business unit? Like,
For
how do
sure.
we simplify that? We'll go all the way back to the beginning of our conversation. How do I simplify that spreadsheet process so I don't have to have Jay go copy that spreadsheet next time, right?
Right. Exactly. And you can delegate it. I guess, yeah, that's what I was going to tie back to. You can delegate it to your AI model.
And there's yeah,
Yep.
perfect.
Yep. Yep.
So that'd be kind of fun. Just delegate everything to AI, but then still have to go check it to make sure it actually did it right.
Right, exactly. Although, I mean, it seems like more and more it can, if you just have the AI check itself, it's actually pretty good at that. Where it's, it doesn't get it right the first time, but then you just feed it back into it, be like, hey, you double check that, and then it'll be like, oh yeah, like this was wrong, and it'll fix it. And so a lot of times, just a little bit of recursion, and the model can actually do pretty well. I was actually just reading about that today, actually, that or like 2 days ago. Um, so Anthropic has Claude, like a couple different models. There's like Sonnet, Opus, and Haiku. I think Haiku's the low one, Sonnet's the middle one, and I guess they just did like Sonnet 3.5, and they were talking about how they were using it specifically for PR review and how they were using it to review PRs, and it actually was doing very well as far as correcting PRs. So they could almost have it write its own code, do the PR on the check the PR, and then be like, oh no, like we need to correct that. And so,
That's
I mean, it's one more step closer to it, just writing its own, like being its own developer.
I mean, oof. I mean, I think for some stuff, I mean that just totally makes sense. Um, Being able to, I mean, the dream's always been if you could convert, uh, clear text requirements just directly into code, right? Could you
Oh yeah.
interpret what
Mhm.
somebody says directly into a process that just does it?
Yeah,
Um, I mean, the solve for that, for the most part, has been WYSIWYG editors and drag and drop interfaces and
that's true. Yeah,
that kind of stuff, right?
right. Just remove the code understanding part and just get to the point where like I know I need it to do this. If I can get it to do that, then I'm good. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I had a buddy that went and did a startup, and he was building this kind of fancy UX instrumentation app where
Okay.
it was exactly that. So it'd be like, you remember if this then that. Remember that
Yeah, that sounds
platform?
familiar.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it was a model similar to that, where it was just like this catalog of very bespoke integrations,
Mhm.
but set up as parameterized tasks, and you could
Sure.
essentially just orchestrate them
Right. Yeah. Right.
together. Like you could join a database to this thing, and then it would transform. So I mean, it was pretty neat. Of course, there's like huge enterprise tools that do this
Right. I was gonna say
as
so now
well.
like Zapier and that kind of thing
Like
now.
Zapier, exactly.
Mhm.
Um, so then you get into it's like they wanted to market it to folks who don't have like full time that level of engineering, so that they could use those big tools.
Mhm. Sure.
Um, yeah, unfortunately, it didn't quite pan out
Sure.
because it's like as soon as you get to anything more complicated than just like a simple database to spreadsheet type thing,
Mhm.
you're starting to get out of the wheelhouse of a lot of your business folks, and
Yeah. Well,
yeah, need engineers.
even I mean Zapier, that's always a reality check, I guess. When I remember jumping into Zapier and messing around with some stuff and just being really impressed with it because it is really cool because it's I can just connect up if a new row shows up in the database or on the spreadsheet, like I wanted to go do upload some file somewhere, and thinking like, oh man, like this is pretty easy, and then you go and then I went and told somebody else oh yeah, non-technical to go check it out. I'm like, yeah, totally overwhelmed. And then when I go back and look at it, it's like, yeah, no, I guess yeah, I could see that where it's just I have you know just having the history of like knowing I don't know the context of okay, I'm selecting this specific sheet, looking for this specific row, and then you select that, and it's like, okay, well, you have all these values. Like, well, I just want the plain text value from that column, and I can see how very quickly this stuff becomes very scary.
Yeah,
So yeah, I could definitely see how it's it would have been a tough sell, as soon as you get outside of like if I can't just select it from a drop down, then it's a little bit more complicated.
Yeah. Where I really hope AI can come in and help us is with things like data migrations, where it
Mm-hmm.
is combination of spreadsheets and databases and loading spreadsheets into databases so that you can do joins and then all that kind of just having your business partners be able to map out this complicated set of here's what the data used to look like and here's what it needs to look like and
Yeah,
it be able to infer and
yeah,
do all that kind of stuff and like the error correction. Like for me, it's the test plans that comes along with it, right? Doing a mapping and everything is generally pretty straightforward. It's like, here's what the destination needs to be. Okay, there's that field. Great, it's done.
right.
But being able to generate test plans for that stuff. And that's
Yeah,
where I've actually had some pretty good success just using, I mean, heck, just using GPT to generate some things where you just feed it a little bit of context and say, what would be a few scenarios to test,
okay,
right? And just dumps it out for you real quick. It's a great starting point.
for sure. Yeah,
Um,
at least to cover like the obvious basics. I mean, then uh, developers have a pretty bad habit of not covering most of the unit tests anyway. So it'd be great to have something that could just spit them out, and the bar is pretty low. So yeah, that
the bar is pretty low. The
gives
bar
you a
is
good place to start.
the bar's pretty low.
Yeah,
And sometimes it's good just for reminders of the little things like,
yeah,
hey, did you check for null?
right, right,
Like
yeah,
how many times have we been bitten by that bug? And you're like,
right.
really, you didn't check for null, but it should never be null. I mean, good excuse,
It
but
could though.
yeah, yeah. But it clearly can.
Yeah,
It shouldn't
yeah.
be, but yeah.
I don't know that, and that's man. I feel like that's one of those. I don't know. I guess I've had that conversation a couple times now, where it's that until you've had the experience, I guess, of sitting on the end of a you know release. It's midnight on a Friday, and you're trying to figure out what's going wrong while there's a whole team of people waiting. Um, and it just I don't know. That's the key moment when you realize that, man, it's really worth testing to make sure that there aren't issues before we get to production. But at the time, it just feels so boring. Like it's fine. Like I'll get back to the unit tests, whatever. Like it's fine. This code's pretty good, and
Just
it
do the
just
unit tests.
right. It's that the implicit. It's just there's no, or I don't know. I guess like the inverse. I guess whatever. There's no direct value. It's the not value. It's the value of not sitting in that release is where the value comes from. So yeah,
Yes, uh, there is a value. It's just, and I think, I mean, I always say you should not be considered for a lead position until you have. I don't want to say directly caused an incident, but I feel like you should have taken down production because you need that fear. Like you need to
right.
know what that fear is in order to be able to lead a team and be able to lead folks through an incident like that, right?
Yeah,
Like you have to have felt that just gut wrenching. I'm getting fired tomorrow. Uh,
yeah, yeah,
fear of God or whatever.
yeah.
You
It's
have to
five.
have felt that.
It's 5 a.m. and we're still trying to get this to work. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Been
see,
there
like
before.
that's the sort of that's the value that you learn that you spend the time on the unit tests because that's the thing that likely helps prevent that situation.
It's a pretty powerful and motivating memory when the next time you're like,
It
oh
is
yeah, I don't want to do that again. So maybe I should double
intensity,
check. Yeah,
law of intensity. Like it's so impactful. Like you never forget, right? And that's why I harp on the checking for null thing is because you know been part of some fairly intense incidents that when you do the root cause on it could have all been fixed if somebody would have just said if variable equals null.
right. Is it
Like,
blank? Yeah.
come on.
Oh
Um,
man. Yeah.
but
It's so easy, but so difficult at the same time.
I mean, it's so true. It is so easy to overlook. But that's where I think like some of these AI testing tools that are out there, they're not bad. They
Yep.
definitely do a good job of generating test suites and I think the next level is just if you can kind of bridge that gap between understanding the plain text requirements of the system,
Yeah.
and then back to my earlier example, like if it can truly understand the system all the way down through the architecture, right now it's not even just like, oh, well, how do we test this one little module? It's, well, we're going to test this module, but understanding that way down deep, there's this encryption that can potentially happen that makes it so this value, shows up or doesn't or whatever it might be.
Right. Right.
Um,
Yeah. Right. When it can hold the context of like the entire system at
it can
once.
generate use cases. It can highlight things that you may never even have thought of,
Mm-hmm. Oh, for
right?
sure. Right.
Um,
That would be crazy. Well, and I mean, I think I've talked about it before, but I know Sam Altman had mentioned it in an interview a couple weeks ago, where he was just talking about how like GPT-4 right now is like the most embarrassing thing to him, just because it's only going to get better. But the comparison he made is really cool. Was that right now it is just basically like a good assistant. It's
yeah.
it's like delegating to an intern or whatever. Um, and he said really his goal is for it to be like a senior engineer where it would take your recommendation and be like, okay, but have you considered this, and push back a little bit and really have a better understanding of what you're asking and be able to ask questions back, as opposed to right now you kind of just tell it what to do and it's like, okay, cool, and then you tell it like, well, isn't that wrong, and it's like, yeah, you're right, like we should probably do that instead. And rather than being quite so agreeable, it would be quick to be like, hey, like that might not be the right answer, maybe you should try this. You're like, oh yeah, you're right, and just have a little bit, back and forth. um and also just again, I kind of like you had talked about before, also for it to be able to just go do stuff. You tell it like, here's the goal, and it's like, okay, cool, and it'll just go do it, and it'll let you know if it gets stuck, but it's going to do its thing, as opposed to just spitting out a bunch of stuff and you have to like continually kind of push it along. It'll just be like, I got it, I'll figure it out, I'll come back. So yeah, but
Yeah.
in that case, for sure, it'd be huge, or it could just like understand all of it, and then yeah, I don't know, it's pretty crazy. Slowly but surely, working our way there.
I mean, I, more power to it if it wants to take over taking in requirements and having to go write a bunch of code. Like, have at it. I'll check in when it's done.
For sure,
Um,
yeah. Wouldn't be
uh,
so bad.
yeah, but even the image and video generators, I think, are similar type of boat, right? Where does it eventually get to the point where it completely eliminates like cinematographers? Like, I don't know, maybe, maybe not,
Right,
probably
right,
not. How artistic can it be, right? That kind of thing. Like, what is
right,
its artistic liberty? I don't know, but I can
right.
tell you, like, for people like me who have, I don't know how to shoot video and edit and all that. Like, if I had an idea where I was like, oh, it'd be cool to see this, I'm pretty happy. I mean, I can write a story,
Mm,
at least enough, I think, to generate something I want to see.
for sure. Well, and
Um,
and you could get most of the story done, and it can help you fill out the story and then turn it into whatever you want. So yeah.
yeah,
uh,
that'd be pretty funny. You just have like a digital writer's room, but it's all just bots. You
yeah,
know?
I mean, yeah, that's the big thing too, right? With a lot of the use cases, oftentimes are just split it up into agents. So you have like, all right, you're head writer, you're the whatever. I'll have just like different positions and have it go through and then pretend it's an entire team and review it all.
Yeah. I mean, remember how much content was coming out during COVID, right? Like, it felt
Hmm.
like every day there was some new series on Netflix. I mean, can you imagine if you could just have this never-ending pipeline of it's just generating content
Yeah, I mean,
nonstop?
yeah, it does feel like that's probably not too far off. That's probably the end game, which is whatever you want to see. Like you got it, like, and it
Yeah,
can do it forever.
yeah.
Uh,
We're gonna have so many Top Gun sequels. It's gonna be ridiculous.
exactly, exactly.
Um, Hundreds of years of Top Gun sequels.
Yeah, no, yeah, I immediately went to Marvel. I mean, it wouldn't be so bad though to see like every single comic book could just become a movie, and then you could just see it.
Hmm.
That'd be pretty entertaining. I mean,
Yeah.
endless.
Dear chatbot, please fix these Marvel movies.
Exactly. Let's try this again.
Yeah. I was excited, but then dot, dot, dot.
That is very possible as well. Could definitely
Yeah.
correct some Marvel and some Star Wars movies that didn't turn out so well. So that, yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Oh, that would be really funny, I think, to see. Would be like, especially those properties that have like an established lore, or like
oh
Marvel, where there's just,
yeah,
I mean, the source material's there, right? Like, you
sure.
just go. there's pages with, but like something like Star Wars that has an established canon.
Right.
And if you went back and said, take this movie, but like fix it,
Yeah,
it'd be very interesting to see how that would play out.
that would be pretty cool. Right.
And
Yeah.
and if the fans, the true fans, right, like
Mhm.
uh, what they would think of it, because that's the bar.
Well, right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know. At this point, I guess like the true fans is probably also its own, you know, there's multiple groups of true fans now with different opinions. So it's probably just as divided as non
Oh, I'm sure.
fans. But yeah.
I'm sure. But there's always going to be the sides to everything. But
Yeah.
my point though is with both of those examples, there is an established canon, right?
Right. Yeah. You could
So
definitely just have it like, hey, what are the things that happen in this movie that are inconsistent with the actual established whatever books and stuff from before previous lore. So yeah, that would be cool to at least like go back and identify and highlight the things that like yeah that's not right, that shouldn't have happened. So that would be
yeah,
cool.
taking artistic liberty with something like a graphic novel, I still will never understand this. The hard part's already done.
Yeah,
Just animate it.
I know with uh Avengers Endgame, the director said like we're like, well, you've already read the comics, so you know what's gonna happen. So like obviously we can't, I mean, some people would enjoy, just doing that again, but at the same time they're just like, well, we want to capture the spirit of it, but at least, keep it somewhat different. To have some reason of like seeing something surprising as opposed to just watching what happened in the comic book. So
I mean that's fair, of course. And you're also trying to market to something bigger than just
uh,
the audience, right?
that's a good
So,
point too. Yeah.
but and I'm fine with like if you're gonna add a little pizzazz or you're gonna spice up the effects or whatever that might be. It's just when you change like marked points of the story for no reason, like it's
Yeah,
not adding anything, right?
fair
Like that
enough.
kind of stuff.
Just
Um,
creative control. Just want to change it up to change it up.
yeah, like
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously people are adding their personal touch to things, but I don't know. I think I personally have a limit where it's like I'm cool if you want to kind of shape this to be your own, but like don't take this very key thing and change it a lot, right?
Okay. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Getting off in too much. Yeah. Too creative territory. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Point is, I think it's gonna be cool when that gets to the point where it can, generate full on, uh, feature length
Like high quality. Yeah. You just ask
movies.
it for
Or,
a 2 hour movie, and it's like sure, and then it just
yeah,
generates a movie for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Generate 12 more seasons of The Office, please, and all of a sudden, you got. Uh, See, like that would be funny. That's gonna be cool to see if it could it, creatively generate things on the caliber of like an Office cold open.
Okay. Yeah. A
You know?
joke like that. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. There was a there was a live stream that was like that, where it was essentially AI running basically a Seinfeld. It's like an AI generated Seinfeld episode. It was yeah, like really bad, 3D graphics, um, but yeah, it was pretty rough. It was entertaining just because it was just kind of ridiculous. But yeah, most of the jokes were just not good. They're just awkward, and so it was just funny because it was just awkward. But I forget what it's called. It was like Watch Me Forever or something like that. So there's actually a couple Twitch channels now that are like that, where it's just infinitely generating a show. Uh, so I mean, but yeah, I think it's only going to get better. Like GPT 4.0 is not bad. Like it's getting better. Where I mean, it definitely has a lot more contextual understanding of things. So it might be pretty good at telling some jokes and doing stuff like that. So probably just a few more iterations away, and you'll have your infinite office cold opens.
I mean, I like it. Or just I'll finally get that Ron Swanson spinoff that I've been looking for
Now we're talking.
this whole
There we go.
time.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Uh, well, I guess not. Well, maybe for the next one. But on this topic,
yeah,
I listened to a podcast that actually had a great point where they were talking about this, where it's we're not far off from AI just being able to generate full movies. So what happens to the movie industry? But he pointed out that human beings love watching human beings do things, and so it'll just probably flip where yeah, for cheap you can just have infinite whatever movie you want, AI will just generate it. But the human made movie will be the luxury, where it's like, oh no, this movie was made entirely by humans, not by AI. And so
Yeah.
that's it'll flip kind of in an awesome example of like horses, where horses were the way you got around. Everybody needed horses for travel, and then things changed, the technology improved. Like, oh, nobody needs horses anymore, and then they just became expensive and for fun. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I I mean, you could always, you had those people that were like the learn to code bro thing.
right,
Now
yeah,
it's just going to be what is going to happen to the movie industry? Learn to prompt, bro.
that's
Like,
right, exactly. You
yeah,
better
Spielberg's just sitting there typing out prompts for stuff. No,
exactly,
I'm
exactly.
with you. I'm with you on that. But I mean, maybe I maybe that's what it is. Maybe I hope if it doesn't do anything else, it forces people to get back to just good storytelling,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Like
Ah, man.
maybe it's a catalyst for original ideas instead of prequels, sequels, and spin-offs.
Right. Well, yeah, that's for
Um,
sure.
have
Man,
you?
I thought I remember somebody talking about that too, where maybe it wasn't AI, but maybe it was just where it's like what basically like, okay, give me 5 ideas, and then okay, cool. The first 5 ideas it comes up with, you strike those off. Like, don't use those, and now come up with some more ideas, and you almost use it as a way to be more creative, because it's like whatever it's going to recommend is not that creative, so you know not to use that. Which was I
Yeah.
thought was like a creative way to use it, like that.
Yeah.
Perfect. Like, okay, that strikes those ideas. Let's go do something else.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah. Hmm.
Right on. Well, we've derailed a little bit from delegation, but that's okay.
Yeah, we did.
I
But we're,
mean,
you know, delegating to AI. I think it all kind of comes together. It's topical. It's where we are.
I was going to say it did. Yeah, it's kind of the future of delegation. So I think I think it ties together pretty well. Yeah, we're also coming up on an hour, so pretty solid conversation for delegation and some other topics.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
any other? I don't know. Got like a hot take or anything to close us out with?
Um, man, hot take. Not really. Other
Okay.
than if I could use AI to fix a movie, I think I'd try to fix the Civil War movie. Man,
Okay. Got it. I was trying to figure out which ones you were referencing directly. So
I just it's for me that movie, man. I wanted it to be so good. I thought it was like The Purge, where it's like such a cool concept, and
yep.
then just kind of a letdown. Kind of a
So
letdown.
so you think Cap should have died? They should have shot Cap.
Um. Oh! Wrong Civil War. I'm talking about the new Civil War movie.
Oh,
Oh, I
yeah,
like
I was thinking
Avengers
Marvel.
Civil War. I thought that
Okay,
was good.
okay,
Yeah,
all
I
right,
like
cool.
that one. Yeah, that was good. No,
Oh,
sorry,
really? So
the newer one. But
the Alex Garland
yeah,
one? Okay, I haven't seen it yet. I wanted to see it, but I kind of figured because it seemed like it went into theaters and it came out of theaters and there wasn't a whole lot of chat about it. So I was like, ah, man, must not have done so well.
yeah, cool concept. Not Ex Machina. We'll just say that.
Got it, got it. Okay, that's good to know. I meant to check it out because big fan of Ex Machina and Devs
And
and
Devs, yeah,
mhm,
not that one either.
not that either. Okay, bummer. Yeah, sad to hear.
Yeah,
Okay, well, maybe GPT eventually will be able to correct that. So okay,
there's your hot take. It's not much
all
of a
right.
hot take. It's more of just a I'm complaining about a movie.
No, fair enough. Fair enough.
What about
Uh,
you, man? What's hot take of the week so far?
take of the week so far. Um, Man, I don't know. I'm still kind of hot on this uh Claude Claude being able to PR review itself. I think that's pretty awesome. I mean, I don't know. I think they said within a year that's going to GP or at least within a year AI would be writing its own code, and I don't know. I feel like that's not far off. Within a year, I think it'll be pretty close to a mid level engineer.
You ever wonder if there's just people sitting there going like, I think I'm gonna try to be the person who invents Skynet, like on purpose, you
Right,
know?
right, right, right. Yeah.
Come on, guys.
I mean, yeah, that's all. Maybe that's a hot take too, but I feel like there is very low. No, I don't know, 10% chance. That probably less than that. I feel like it's more like a 1% chance that's actually going to happen. I think
Yeah, no, that's fair.
humans love to talk about how it's always the end of the world, and yet we continue to never have the end of the world. So unless it happens by outside of our own control, I don't know. I think we're going to keep plugging on.
No, I agree, and I think eventually it'll be. It's much more likely we'll have Idiocracy than Terminator. So,
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Right. Yeah. Maybe it's just the AI is just like, good job. You guys are doing good. We'll take
yeah,
it from here. Yeah.
go watch this TV.
Right.
We'll take yeah, exactly.
Infinite Marvel movies. We'll give you food. You're good. Like we're
Infinite
gonna.
Marvel
Yeah.
movies, yes. All right. Other hot, not even a hot take, just something I saw today.
Okay.
Cool thing to end on if you haven't seen it yet. The
Okay.
SpaceX launch from today.
Oh, I
Um,
did not see it. Okay.
they did another test flight for Starship.
Yeah.
The engineers and the staff at SpaceX, like I don't know if they're just doing it for the camera, but that entire group of people could not be more excited about what was happening. Now, granted, they are actually launching spaceships,
That
so
is true. Yes.
pretty awesome. But like,
Yeah.
just everybody was there. Elon was there in the command center watching everything, and everybody just I mean, that's basically how I ended my day at work today. Was remembered that happened and went and watched the recap.
Right on.
Phenomenal. Feel good story of the day.
That seems like a good one to end on. I'll have to go check it out.
There it is.
There we go. Successful rocket launch. Awesome.
Successful rocket launch.
Right on. And a successful DevSync episode. So we'll call it on that.
Let's do it.
Awesome. We'll see you in the next one.
You got it, buddy.
Thanks.